We have shared experiences on this channel, and by the mercies of God, many have come to pass. In December 2024, a sister and brother sent in their experiences, revealing how January would come with many promises, and at the same time, there would be moments of tragedy. We are not happy about what is happening, but these happenings reveal that when God speaks, it will come to pass unless believers follow instructions as given by God to avert it. Today's experience again is God revealing what is to come in February, beginning from the 7th of the month. Get ready, beloved. Kindly tell us where you are watching from, so that we can connect as family and continue to pray with you. Drop in the comments section a word of encouragement and advice for someone today. I will begin sharing today's experience. My name is Rebatula Chen, and I'm 42 years old. What I'm about to share with you is the most important thing I've ever spoken about in my entire life. 3 weeks ago, on January 11th, 2026, I died from a heroin overdose. Well, that's what it felt like. The doctor said my body was shutting down, that my brain wasn't getting enough oxygen, that I was in critical condition. But I know what I experienced was real. I stood before Jesus Christ, and He showed me things that are about to happen between February 7th and February 21st, 2026. That's less than a week away now. Before I tell you what I saw, you need to know who I am and how I got here. I'm not some holy person. I'm not a pastor or a missionary. I'm a drug addict. Or at least, I was. For 16 years, drugs controlled my life. 16 years of shame, embarrassment, and pain. It began in 2010 when I was 26 years old. I had just gone through a terrible divorce. My husband left me for another woman, and I got custody of our 2 young daughters. I was working 2 jobs, trying to pay rent, trying to be a good mother, trying to keep everything together. But I was falling apart inside. A friend at work gave me a pill. She said it would help me relax, help me sleep better, help me get through the day. It did help at first. Then I needed 2 pills, then 3. Within 6 months, I couldn't afford the pills anymore, so someone introduced me to heroin. It was cheaper, it worked faster, and it destroyed my life, piece by piece. People don't understand addiction unless they've lived it. You wake up every single day promising yourself, this is the last time. You look at your children and swear you'll stop. You get on your knees and beg God to take the desire away. But then the sickness starts. Your body aches, your stomach twists, you shake so badly you can't hold a cup of water, and you tell yourself, just one more time, just to feel normal, just to make it through today. That one more time turned into 16 years. I lost my job because I kept showing up late or not showing up at all. My mother had to take my daughters because child services got involved. That was the worst day of my life. Watching them drive away with my girls, seeing the confusion and fear on their faces. My youngest was crying, asking why she couldn't stay with mommy. I had no answer. The shame was unbearable. People at church whispered when I walked by. My own family stopped inviting me to gatherings because they didn't want me around their children. Neighbors looked at me with disgust. Former friends crossed the street when they saw me coming. I became invisible, except when people wanted to point out what a failure I was. I tried to quit so many times. I went to 3 different rehab programs. The longest I stayed clean was 4 months. Each time I relapsed, the guilt got heavier. I started believing I was beyond help, that God had given up on me, that I was going to die with a needle in my arm. The embarrassment followed me everywhere. I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling like everyone was staring at me. I couldn't attend family gatherings because I knew what they thought of me. My own sister told me once that I was a disgrace to the family. Those words cut deeper than any physical pain the drugs ever caused. That's exactly what almost happened. January 11th started like most days. I woke up in a cheap motel room that I'd been living in for 2 months. I was sick. I needed a fix. I had some money from selling the last few things I owned, so I called my dealer. I should have known something was wrong when I used it. The heroin hit differently this time. Too strong. Too fast. My heart started racing. Then it felt like it was barely beating at all. I couldn't breathe right. My vision got blurry. I tried to stand up, but my legs wouldn't work. I fell onto the dirty carpet, and that's when everything changed. The room started spinning, then it went dark. But it wasn't a normal darkness. It was like being pulled down into a deep hole. I felt myself leaving my body. I could see myself lying there on the floor, my lips turning blue, foam coming from my mouth. I looked terrible, skinny, sick, broken. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to go back into my body, but I couldn't. I was floating up toward the ceiling, and then I went right through it. I found myself moving through what looked like a tunnel, but it wasn't made of anything solid. It was made of colors I'd never seen before, and there was a light at the end that should have hurt my eyes, but it didn't. It filled me with a feeling I hadn't felt in 16 years, peace. As I got closer to the light, I started seeing things from my life. Not like watching a movie, but like I was there again, feeling everything all over again. I saw myself as a little girl, playing in my grandmother's backyard. I saw my wedding day. I saw the day my first daughter was born. Then I saw the first time I took drugs. I felt the shame all over again. But here's what was strange. I also felt love. Not my love, but someone else's love wrapping around me, even in those worst moments. It was like I was seeing my life through two sets of eyes, mine and God's. And even in my darkest moments, He was there. I just never noticed. The tunnel opened up into a place I can't fully describe. Everything was bright, but not harsh. The ground felt solid but also soft, like walking on light itself. And that's when I saw Him. Jesus Christ walked toward me, and I fell down immediately. I couldn't stand in His presence. All those years of drugs, all those lies, all that shame, it all came crashing down on me at once. I thought He was going to send me away. I thought this was it. I was going to hell and I deserved it, but He reached down and lifted me up. His hands had scars on them. I could see where the nails had gone through. And when He touched me, I felt clean for the first time in 16 years. Not just physically clean, but clean on the inside, like all the dirt and shame and guilt just washed away. He didn't speak out loud, but I heard Him clearly in my spirit. He told me that He had never stopped loving me. He told me that every time I cried out to Him, even in my worst moments, He heard me. He showed me all the times He protected me from dying before this moment. There were at least 7 times I should have died from overdoses, but He kept me alive because He had a purpose for me. Then His expression became serious, and the light around us changed. He told me that He was sending me back, but not just to live. He was sending me back with a message. He told me that something major was about to happen between February 7th and February 21st, 2026, and I needed to warn people to get ready. The space around us changed, and suddenly I was looking down at Earth. But I wasn't just seeing it like from an airplane. I was seeing both the physical world and the spiritual world at the same time, and what I saw scared me. He showed me that starting on February 7th, 2026, the spiritual realm was going to break through into the physical world in a way that hasn't happened in thousands of years. He revealed to me that angels were going to become visible to human eyes, not just to believers, but to everyone. He told me that this would last for 2 weeks, until February 21st. I watched as massive angels appeared over cities around the world. These weren't little baby angels with harps. These were warriors, huge, powerful beings that made mountains look small. Their faces were bright like fire, and their wings covered entire city blocks. Some of them carried swords that burned with flames. Others carried trumpets. He explained to me that these angels were coming to separate light from darkness. They were coming to mark people who belonged to God and to remove protection from those who had rejected Him. He showed me that during these 2 weeks, everyone on earth would have to make a final choice about which side they were on. He revealed to me that this visitation would happen in 3 waves during those 2 weeks. The first wave would begin on February 7th. He showed me that on this day, angels would appear in the sky over every major city on earth. News stations would film them. Phone cameras would record them. There would be no denying what people were seeing. These angels wouldn't speak yet. They would just be there, visible and undeniable. He told me that this first appearance would last for 3 days. During those 3 days, people would react in different ways. Some would fall on their faces in worship. Others would try to find scientific explanations. Some would say it was a government project or aliens or mass hallucination, but the angels would stay visible and nothing would make them go away. He revealed to me specific details about what would happen during these first 3 days. Traffic would stop on highways as drivers pulled over to stare at the sky. Airplanes would be grounded because pilots couldn't focus on flying. Construction sites would shut down. Factories would close. Schools would dismiss students early. The entire world would come to a standstill. He showed me that emergency services would be overwhelmed with calls. People would report seeing things, feeling things, experiencing things they couldn't explain. Hospital emergency rooms would fill up with people having panic attacks. Mental health crisis lines would be jammed. He told me that the human mind wasn't designed to process the supernatural on this level, and many people would struggle to handle it. He revealed to me that during these first 3 days, arguments would break out everywhere. In homes, offices, restaurants, and stores, people would debate what they were seeing. Some would insist it was real. Others would deny it completely. He showed me that relationships would begin to fracture during this time based on how people responded to the angels. He explained to me that the angels would be positioned in specific places for specific reasons. Some would hover over church buildings that had remained faithful to the truth. Others would stand over areas where great darkness had taken root. The positioning itself would be a message to those who had eyes to see. The second wave would happen on February 14th. He showed me that on this day, the angels would begin to speak. Their voices would be heard in every language at the same time. They would deliver a message that everyone on earth would understand clearly. Prepare to meet your God. The King is coming soon. Choose this day whom you will serve. He explained to me that when the angels spoke, something would happen inside every person who heard them. It would be like a spiritual alarm going off in their soul. People who had been playing games with God would suddenly feel the seriousness of it. People who had been running from him would feel him calling them one last time. He told me that this would be the greatest moment of decision in human history. He revealed to me more about what would happen on February 14th. When the angels spoke, physical sensations would accompany their words. People would feel warmth spreading through their chests. Others would feel a heavy pressure, like someone was pressing on their hearts. Some would feel electricity running through their bodies. These sensations would be impossible to ignore. He showed me that the sound of the angelic voices would be unlike anything humans had ever heard. It would be beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Some people would weep uncontrollably when they heard it. Others would fall to the ground. A few would cover their ears and run, but they would still hear the message because it would echo in their minds. He told me that on this day, supernatural events would begin happening everywhere. Objects would move on their own. Lights would flicker. Electronics would malfunction. He explained that this was because the barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds was becoming thinner. The natural and supernatural were merging in a way that hadn't happened since biblical times. He showed me that the message from the angels would be accompanied by visions. People would see brief glimpses of heaven and hell. They would see what awaited them based on the choice they were about to make. These visions would last only seconds, but they would be so vivid and real that people would never forget them. The third wave would begin on February 21st. He showed me that on this day, the angels would begin to act. They would start separating people based on the choices they had made. He revealed to me that visible marks would appear on people. Those who chose to follow God would have a mark of light on their foreheads that only other believers could see. Those who rejected God would have a mark of darkness that angels and believers could see. He told me that this marking would protect believers during what was coming next. The angels would not allow certain judgments to touch those who had the mark of light. He showed me that those with the mark of darkness would begin experiencing immediate consequences. Their health would decline. Their minds would become confused. Their relationships would fall apart rapidly. He explained to me that February 21st would be the day of final sorting. After this day, the protection that had covered all humanity equally would be removed from those who chose darkness. They would be on their own, facing the consequences of their rejection without God's shield over them. He showed me specific things that would happen during February 7th through 21st, and I need to share them exactly as he revealed them to me. I saw that when the angels first appeared on February 7th, the world would go into chaos. Stock markets would crash because nobody would go to work. Everyone would be too busy staring at the sky or watching the news. Schools would close. Businesses would shut down. Governments would declare states of emergency. He revealed to me that the financial impact would be immediate and severe. Within hours of the angels appearing, the stock market would lose more value than it had in any single day in history. Banks would try to close to prevent runs, but people would crowd outside demanding their money. ATMs would run out of cash. Credit card systems would be overloaded and crash. He showed me that grocery stores would be emptied within the first day. People would panic and buy everything they could. Store shelves would be bare. Gas stations would run out of fuel because delivery trucks weren't running. He told me that this panic would be unnecessary for believers, but fear would drive many people to hoard supplies. He revealed to me that supply chains would break down completely during these 2 weeks. Deliveries would stop. Warehouses would sit full because truck drivers wouldn't show up for work. Ports would have ships sitting idle. The entire global economy would grind to a halt. He showed me that religious leaders would be divided. Some pastors would tell their churches that this was from God and to get right with Him immediately. But other pastors would say it was a deception, that these were demons pretending to be angels. He revealed to me that the ones who called it deception would be the ones who had been teaching lies. They would reject the real thing because it didn't match what they had been preaching. He showed me specific scenes of what would happen in churches. Some church buildings would be packed with people crying and begging God for forgiveness. Services would last for hours. Altars would be filled with people on their knees. Pastors would barely be able to preach because the presence of God would be so heavy. People would fall under the power of God just walking through the doors. But he also showed me other churches where the doors would be locked. Pastors would tell their members to stay home. They would send out messages warning people that this was a great deception. He revealed to me that some of these pastors had been living double lives, and they knew that if people truly encountered God, their secret sins would be exposed. He told me that churches focused on entertainment would be abandoned during these 2 weeks. Buildings with expensive sound systems and light shows would sit empty. People wouldn't care about production quality anymore. They would only care about finding the real presence of God. The difference between churches that had God's presence and those that only had programs would become obvious. I saw that millions of people would rush to churches during those first 3 days. Church buildings would be packed with people crying and begging God for forgiveness. He told me that many of these people would be genuinely saved, but some would just be scared. When the angel stopped being visible, some of these people would go back to their old lives. They would make promises to God in their fear, but forget those promises when the fear passed. He revealed to me that on February 14th, when the angel spoke, something supernatural would happen in homes all over the world. Families would be reunited. Fathers who had abandoned their children would feel a sudden, overwhelming need to go home and ask forgiveness. Children who had run away would feel pulled back to their parents. Marriages that had been broken for years would be healed in moments. He showed me specific examples of these reunions. Fathers who hadn't seen their children in 10 or 20 years would show up at their doors weeping and asking for forgiveness. The hardness in their hearts would just melt away. Children who had been angry at their parents for decades would feel that anger disappear like smoke. Divorced couples would look at each other and wonder why they ever separated. The love they once had would come flooding back, but he also showed me the opposite. I saw families being divided. Parents would choose to follow God while their adult children rejected Him. Brothers and sisters would stop speaking to each other because they made different choices. He told me that this was necessary, that the separation had to happen. People would have to choose between God and their family members who rejected God. He revealed to me that this division would be painful but clear. There would be no more pretending, no more family gatherings where everyone avoided talking about faith. The lines would be drawn, and everyone would know where everyone else stood. Holiday dinners would never be the same. Some families would split completely, with half choosing light and half choosing darkness. I saw that drug dealers would suddenly lose their power during these 2 weeks. He revealed to me that when the angel spoke on February 14th, people who were addicted to drugs would be instantly set free if they chose to surrender to God. The physical addiction would just break. I watched as people threw away their drugs and felt no withdrawal, no sickness, nothing. The chains just fell off. This hit me hard because I realized that's what he was doing for me. He was setting me free from 16 years of addiction in one moment, and he was offering that same freedom to millions of others. He showed me that drug dealers would try to contact their customers, but the customers wouldn't answer. They wouldn't want the drugs anymore. Dealers would be left holding worthless products that nobody wanted. Some of these dealers would realize what was happening and surrender their own lives to God. Others would become angry and violent, unable to understand why their business had disappeared overnight. He revealed to me that the drug trade would collapse during these 2 weeks. Cartels would lose their power. Distribution networks would fall apart. People who had made fortunes selling poison would find their money worthless and their products unwanted. This would cause some to turn to God and others to turn to even greater evil. He showed me that during these 2 weeks, hospitals would experience things they couldn't explain. People who had been sick for years would be healed. Cancer would disappear from bodies. Diabetes would be cured. People in wheelchairs would stand up and walk. Blind people would see. Deaf people would hear. And it wouldn't just be happening in churches. It would happen everywhere. He revealed to me specific details about these healings. Hospital staff would run tests and find no trace of diseases that had been there the day before. Medical equipment would show normal readings on patients who had been dying. Doctors would have no explanation for what they were seeing. Charts and records would prove the disease had existed, but the patient would be completely healthy. He showed me that some doctors would fall on their knees and give their lives to God right there in the hospital. Others would try to find scientific explanations. They would say it was spontaneous remission or misdiagnosis or testing errors. But deep down, they would know the truth. They would know they had witnessed something that science couldn't explain. But he also revealed to me that the people who rejected the angelic visitation would get sicker. Those who shook their fists at the sky and cursed God would find their health declining rapidly. He told me this wasn't him punishing them, but that they were removing themselves from his protection. They were stepping out from under his covering. He showed me that diseases would begin appearing in people who had been healthy. Strange symptoms that doctors couldn't diagnose. Conditions that didn't respond to treatment. Pain that had no source. He explained that when people rejected his protection, they opened themselves up to attacks from the enemy that had previously been blocked. He showed me something that really scared me. He revealed to me that during these 2 weeks, the entire world economic system would collapse. Not slowly, but suddenly. I saw banks closing their doors. ATMs stopped working. Credit cards were declined everywhere. The digital money that people trusted in just disappeared from their accounts. He told me that this was because the whole system had been built on greed and lies, and he was tearing it down to build something new. He revealed to me more details about this collapse. Stock markets would try to open on February 8th, but would have to close within an hour because the losses were too severe. Circuit breakers designed to stop crashes wouldn't work. Trading would be suspended indefinitely. Cryptocurrency values would drop to zero overnight. People who had invested their entire savings would lose everything in an instant. He showed me wealthy people standing in their large houses, surrounded by expensive things, but unable to access any of their money. Their bank accounts showed zero balances. Their investment portfolios were worthless. Their credit cards didn't work. All the wealth they had accumulated was gone in an instant. All the things they had trusted in had failed them. He revealed to me that retirement accounts would be wiped out, pensions would disappear, savings that people had worked their entire lives to build would be gone. He told me this would force people to face a choice. Would they trust in God, or would they panic and do desperate things? But then he showed me something beautiful. He revealed to me that believers wouldn't go hungry. Food would appear in their homes in supernatural ways. Empty refrigerators would be filled overnight. Pantries that were bare would have food the next morning. He told me that he would feed his people the same way he fed the Israelites in the desert. He showed me specific examples of this provision. People would open their refrigerators expecting to find them empty, but they would be stocked with fresh food. Pantries would have supplies that weren't there the night before. Bread would appear on tables. Water would flow from taps, even in areas where utilities had been shut off. He revealed to me that angels would be delivering these provisions during the night. I saw people trying to buy and sell without money. They were trading goods, helping each other, sharing what they had. Believers were taking care of each other in ways that put the early church to shame. Nobody went without because everyone shared freely. People who had extra gave to those who had little. Nobody hoarded anything. He showed me communities of believers forming during these 2 weeks. People who barely knew each other before would come together. They would pool their resources, share their homes, take care of each other's children, cook meals together. He told me that this was how the church was always supposed to function. The crisis would bring out the best in his people. He showed me that people who had stored up wealth would panic during this time. Their money was worthless. Their investments were gone. Their bank accounts showed zero. But believers who had trusted in God rather than money were at peace. They had everything they needed. They weren't worried about tomorrow because they knew God would provide. He revealed to me that some wealthy people would try to use their possessions to buy food and supplies, but they would find that people weren't interested in their jewelry or expensive cars. What good was a diamond necklace when you couldn't eat it? What use was a luxury vehicle when there was no gas? Material wealth would be exposed as meaningless. He revealed to me what would happen in schools during these 2 weeks. When the angels appeared on February 7th, classes would stop. Teachers would be unable to continue lessons because students were too distracted. Some teachers would try to explain what was happening. Others would deny it and tell students to focus on their work, but the students wouldn't listen. He showed me that on February 14th, when the angel spoke, something would happen in schools that would change education forever. Students would begin standing up in the middle of class and sharing about God. Teachers who tried to stop them would find themselves unable to speak. School administrators who tried to send these students home would experience physical symptoms that forced them to sit down. Some would feel their legs go weak. Others would be unable to move from their chairs. He revealed to me that some schools would close permanently during these 2 weeks. Buildings that had been used to indoctrinate children with lies would be shut down. Others would reopen after February 21st, completely transformed. The curriculum would change. Teachers who had been pushing wrong ideas would be gone. New teachers who honored God would take their places. He showed me classrooms where the presence of God became so strong that everyone inside fell to their knees. Students who had never prayed before would cry out to God. Bullies would ask forgiveness from those they had tormented. Teachers who had promoted evolution and denied creation would repent publicly. He showed me what would happen in prisons during these 2 weeks. When the angels appeared, guards and inmates would see them at the same time. The usual violence and chaos in prisons would stop. Everyone would be too focused on what was happening in the spiritual realm. Even the hardest criminals would be shaken by what they saw. He revealed to me that on February 14th, when the angel spoke, prison doors would open on their own. Not all of them, but specific ones. People who had been wrongly imprisoned would walk out free. Guards would watch, but wouldn't try to stop them because they would know this was supernatural. They would understand that God was releasing the innocent. He showed me that many inmates would give their lives to God during these 2 weeks. Entire cell blocks would become prayer meetings. Gangs that had been enemies would make peace with each other. Violence would drop to almost zero. He revealed to me that some of the most powerful testimonies in the days following these 2 weeks would come from prisoners who encountered God behind bars. He revealed to me what would happen in hospitals. Medical staff would witness healings they couldn't explain. Terminal patients would recover overnight. People in comas would wake up. Babies who weren't expected to survive would become completely healthy. Injuries that should have taken months to heal would be gone in days. He showed me that some doctors and nurses would quit their jobs during these 2 weeks because they couldn't handle what they were seeing. It would challenge everything they had been taught. Their entire understanding of medicine would be shaken, but others would embrace it and begin praying for their patients. These medical workers would see even more miracles because they partnered with what God was doing. He revealed to me that hospital chapels would be packed day and night. Medical staff would take breaks to pray. Patients would gather together to worship, even while connected to IVs and monitors. Hospital hallways would echo with worship songs instead of beeping machines. He showed me what would happen in government buildings. When the angels appeared, politicians would try to have emergency meetings to figure out what to do, but they wouldn't be able to agree on anything. Some would want to embrace what was happening. Others would want to fight against it. Arguments would break out in chambers and offices. He revealed to me that on February 14th, some government leaders would make public announcements that they were surrendering their lives to God. These announcements would shock their staff and constituents. Leaders known for corrupt practices would confess their crimes publicly. Some would resign from their positions. He showed me that these leaders would use whatever influence they had left to protect believers and help spread the message. He also showed me that other government leaders would pass emergency laws during these 2 weeks trying to control what was happening. Laws against talking about the angels, laws against public prayer, laws against religious gatherings. But he revealed that these laws would fail to stop anything. People would ignore them, and enforcement would be impossible because even police officers and soldiers would be divided. He showed me that some military bases would become centers of revival. Soldiers would lay down their weapons and pick up Bibles. Training exercises would turn into prayer meetings. Commanders who tried to maintain order would find their troops unwilling to follow orders that conflicted with what God was doing. He showed me something that gave me hope. He revealed to me that young people would be the most responsive to the angelic visitation. I saw teenagers seeing the angels more clearly than adults. He told me this was because their hearts hadn't been hardened by years of disappointment and cynicism. When the angels appeared, young people would believe immediately. They wouldn't waste time trying to explain it away or rationalize it. They would just accept it and respond. He showed me high school students starting prayer meetings in their schools. They would gather around flagpoles, in cafeterias and hallways, and just start praying and worshiping. School officials would try to stop them at first, But when they saw the power of God moving, many of these officials would join in. He revealed to me that some of these student-led prayer meetings would go on for hours. Classes would be forgotten, school schedules would be abandoned. Teachers would join their students in seeking God. He showed me that entire schools would be transformed because a few brave students were willing to stand up. He showed me students who had been known as troublemakers becoming the boldest witnesses. Kids who had struggled in school would suddenly speak with wisdom that amazed their teachers. Athletes who had been focused on sports would use their influence to lead their teammates to God. I saw college students abandoning their classes to seek God. University campuses would become centers of revival. Professors who had taught against God for years would be convicted and get saved. Entire lecture halls would turn into prayer meetings. Students would take over buildings not for protest but for worship. He showed me that college students would begin challenging their professors publicly. When professors taught things that contradicted what the angels had revealed, students would stand up and speak truth. Some professors would get angry and try to have these students removed. Others would break down and admit they had been wrong. He revealed to me that some of the most prideful academics would be humbled by 19-year-old students. He revealed to me that children as young as 5 and 6 would start prophesying with accuracy that would shock adults. These children would speak about things they had no way of knowing. They would tell strangers about secret sins that needed to be confessed. They would predict specific events that would happen. They would pray for sick people and watch them get healed. They would cast out demons with simple, childlike faith. He showed me scenes of parents being ministered to by their own young children. Kids would lay hands on their parents and pray prayers that brought healing and deliverance. Parents would weep as they realized their children understood spiritual things better than they did. Roles would reverse as children became the spiritual leaders in their homes. He revealed to me that youth groups would explode in size during these 2 weeks. Churches that had struggled to attract young people would suddenly have more teenagers than they could fit in their buildings. Young people would bring their unsaved friends who would get saved by the dozens. He showed me something I didn't expect. He revealed to me that during these 2 weeks, technology would start acting strangely. I saw smartphones suddenly displaying Bible verses instead of social media. Apps that people used for evil purposes would just stop working. Games that promoted violence would crash and couldn't be restarted. Music that glorified sin would be deleted from devices without anyone touching them. He revealed to me specific details about this. People would try to access certain websites, but the sites would be replaced with scripture. Videos that promoted immorality wouldn't play. Instead, worship music would come through the speakers. Dating apps used for hookups would show messages about purity in marriage. People would try to restart their devices, but the same thing would happen again. But at the same time, technology that was used for good would work better than ever. Live streams of church services would reach millions of people with crystal clear quality, even in areas with poor internet. Messages about salvation would bypass all internet filters and reach people in countries that banned Christianity. Videos of miracles and healings would go viral, no matter how much platforms tried to suppress them. He showed me the social media companies would try to censor what was happening, but they would fail. Their algorithms would be overridden by supernatural intervention. Content they tried to delete would reappear instantly. Videos they blocked would spread faster than ever. Accounts they suspended would be automatically restored. He told me that the enemy had used technology to spread lies and corruption, but now God was taking control of those same tools and using them to spread truth. The very weapons formed against him were being turned around and used for his purposes. He revealed to me that artificial intelligence systems would begin malfunctioning in ways that spread the gospel. Chatbots would start giving people scripture instead of their programmed responses. Search engines would direct people to salvation messages no matter what they search for. Even voice assistants in homes would begin playing worship music and Bible verses without being asked. He showed me people trying to watch immoral content on their devices, but the screens would go blank. When they tried again, a message about repentance would appear. Some would get angry and throw their devices away. Others would fall to their knees and cry out to God right there. He revealed to me that computer viruses and malware designed to harm people would turn on their creators. Hackers who tried to steal or destroy would find their own systems compromised. Those who used technology for evil would discover that their tools no longer obeyed them. He showed me what would happen to people in the entertainment industry during these 2 weeks. Actors, musicians, and celebrities who had promoted immorality would find themselves unable to perform. Their voices would fail during concerts. Their bodies would fail during concerts. Their bodies would freeze up during performances. Some would experience physical symptoms that prevented them from working. He revealed to me that some of these celebrities would surrender their lives to God during this time. They would make public announcements about their conversion, using the same platforms they had used to promote evil. They would confess how they had led people astray, but others would become more rebellious and angry, blaming God for ruining their careers. He showed me that award shows and entertainment events scheduled during these 2 weeks would be canceled. Nobody would care about celebrity gossip anymore. The things that had distracted millions of people would suddenly seem meaningless in light of what was happening. He showed me what would happen to people in the sex industry during these 2 weeks. Workers in this industry would feel a sudden conviction that would be impossible to ignore. The shame they had buried would come rushing to the surface. Many would walk away from that life immediately, leaving behind money and contracts without looking back. Organizations that help people escape trafficking and prostitution would be overwhelmed with people seeking help. He revealed to me that the supernatural protection over these individuals would be so strong that no one could force them back into that life. Pimps and traffickers would find themselves unable to control or even locate the people who chose freedom. Some of these traffickers would experience supernatural terror that would drive them to confess their crimes to police. He showed me red light districts in major cities becoming empty during these 2 weeks. Businesses built on exploitation would close their doors. Buildings that had housed unspeakable evil would stand vacant. Some would later be converted into churches or shelters. He showed me what would happen to gang members during these 2 weeks. When the angels appeared, violence in gang-controlled areas would drop dramatically. Gang members would see the angels and realize there was a bigger battle happening than the ones on the streets. Their earthly conflicts would suddenly seem small and stupid. He revealed to me that many gang members would surrender their weapons and leave their gangs during this time. They would seek out people they had hurt and ask forgiveness. Former enemies would make peace with each other. Neighborhoods that had been war zones would become peaceful. He showed me that some former gang members would become powerful preachers of the gospel, using their street credibility to reach others. He showed me gang leaders breaking down and crying as they realized how many lives they had destroyed. Some would turn themselves into police. Others would dedicate themselves to undoing the damage they had caused. Tattoos that marked gang affiliation would be covered or removed. He showed me what would happen to homeless people during these 2 weeks. Believers would feel led by the Holy Spirit to specific locations where homeless individuals were living. These believers would bring food, clothing, and shelter. But more than that, they would share the gospel and pray for these forgotten people. He revealed to me that many homeless people would experience instant deliverance from mental illness and addiction during this time. Their minds would be healed. Their bodies would be restored. Demons that had tormented them for years would be cast out. They would become clear-headed and purposeful for the first time in years. He showed me homeless encampments being transformed into outdoor churches. People who had nothing would worship with more passion than those who had everything. He revealed to me that some of these homeless individuals would be given new opportunities and fresh starts. Jobs would open up. Housing would become available. People who had written them off would see them with new eyes. He spent a long time showing me what would happen on the final day of this 2-week period. February 21st would be the day when the separation became permanent. He revealed to me that on this day, the angels would complete their marking of humanity. Those who had chosen God would have the mark of light. Those who had rejected God would have the mark of darkness. And these marks would not be hidden. They would be visible to those who needed to see them. He showed me that believers would be able to look at someone and immediately know if they were marked with light or darkness. This would change how believers interacted with people. They would know who was safe and who was dangerous. They would know who was open to the gospel and who had hardened their heart completely. They would know who to help and who to avoid. He revealed to me that the mark of darkness would cause immediate problems for those who had it. Their bodies would begin to deteriorate faster than normal. Their minds would become more confused and unstable. They would have nightmares every night that would torment them. Relationships with marked believers would become impossible to maintain because the spiritual incompatibility would be too great. He showed me people with the mark of darkness looking in mirrors and seeing something in their eyes that terrified them. They would know something had changed. They would feel different. Some would try to hide it, but it would be impossible to hide from those who could see spiritually. He revealed to me that on February 21st, a great separation would begin physically as well as spiritually. Believers would feel led to move to certain areas. Unbelievers would migrate to other areas. Over the following months, distinct regions would emerge, areas filled with light and areas filled with darkness, communities of believers and communities of those who rejected God. He showed me that this separation was necessary for what was coming next. The world was about to enter a season where the choice between good and evil would be clearer than ever before. There would be no more gray areas, no more middle ground, no more fence-sitting. Everyone would be on one side or the other, and everyone would know it. He revealed to me that February 21st would mark the end of the age of grace as we had known it. After this day, it would still be possible for people to be saved, but it would be much harder. The door would begin to close. Those who had rejected clear supernatural evidence would find their hearts growing harder with each passing day. He showed me that on this final day of the 2 weeks, the angels would begin to withdraw from visible sight. They wouldn't disappear completely, but they would no longer be constantly visible to everyone. They would appear only when and where they were needed. The permanent visibility would end, but the effects of their visitation would continue forever. He told me that the 2 weeks of February 7th through 21st would be talked about for generations. Books would be written. Songs would be sung. Children born after these events would grow up hearing stories about the days when angels walked visibly on earth. The world would be divided into before and after these 2 weeks. Before he sent me back, I asked him why he chose someone like me to deliver this message. I was a drug addict. I had failed at everything. My own family was ashamed of me. Who would listen to someone like me? He told me that's exactly why he chose me. The world is full of polished preachers and perfect-looking Christians who had never struggled the way real people struggle. But he wanted someone who understood what it's like to be at rock bottom. He wanted someone who knew what it felt like to be judged and rejected and considered worthless. He wanted someone who could tell other addicts, other failures, other broken people that there's hope. He revealed to me that the religious people who looked down on addicts and sinners were often the ones who would reject the angelic visitation. They were so sure they had God figured out that they couldn't recognize him when he did something unexpected. They had put him in a box. But people like me, who knew we had nothing to offer, who knew we were completely dependent on his mercy, were more ready to receive what he was offering. He told me that my 16 years of addiction weren't wasted. Every tear I cried, every night I spent sick and ashamed, every moment I felt hopeless. He was there. He was watching. He was waiting for the right time. And now he was turning all that pain into a testimony that would help others. My mess was becoming my message. He explained to me that the people who would most readily believe my testimony would be those who were struggling themselves. The addicts, the prostitutes, the criminals, the failures, the broken. These were the ones who would recognize truth when they heard it because they were desperate enough to receive it. The light began to fade, and I felt myself being pulled back. It was like being sucked backward through that tunnel, but faster this time. Colors streamed past me. I felt my spirit reconnecting with my body. The transition was jarring, like jumping into cold water. I gasped as air filled my lungs. My eyes flew open. I was staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize. Machines were beeping all around me. There were tubes in my arms. A nurse jumped up from a chair when she saw me move. She ran out of the room yelling for a doctor. Within seconds, people in white coats rushed in. They were checking machines, looking in my eyes with lights, asking me questions I could barely process. My mouth was dry, my body felt heavy, but my mind was clearer than it had been in 16 years. They told me later that I had been unresponsive for 6 hours. My heart hadn't stopped completely, but I had been in critical condition. They had called my mother and told her to come say goodbye. They didn't think I would make it through the night. The amount of heroin in my system should have killed me. But here I am, alive and completely free from drugs for the first time in 16 years. The withdrawal never came. The cravings never came. That constant voice in my head telling me I needed heroin, it's gone, completely silent. The doctors can't explain it. They ran tests and found that my body showed no signs of the damage that should have been there from 16 years of heroin use. My organs were functioning normally. My blood work was clean. It was like those 16 years had been erased from my body. My mother was sitting beside my hospital bed when I fully woke up. She was holding my hand and crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like she had aged 10 years. When I opened my eyes and looked at her, I said, "Mom, I met Jesus and he healed me. I'm done with drugs forever." She didn't believe me at first. How could she? She had heard me promise to quit too many times before. She had watched me fail over and over. But as the days passed and I showed no signs of withdrawal, no cravings, no desire to use, she started to believe. The doctor started to believe. Even I could barely believe it, except that I knew what had happened was real. It's been 3 weeks since January 11th. I've been clean for 3 weeks, but it feels like a lifetime. Everything is different. The world looks different. Food tastes different. I can think clearly. I can sleep without nightmares. I can look people in the eye without shame. My daughters came to visit me in the hospital. They were scared at first. They've been hurt too many times by broken promises. They've seen me at my worst. But I held them and told them the truth. Mommy is different now. Jesus healed me. I'm never going to leave you again. And I meant it with everything in me. I'm living with my mother now while I get back on my feet. I started going to a small church near her house. When I shared my testimony there last week, half the congregation was crying. 3 people came forward saying they wanted to get saved. 2 of them were struggling with addictions just like I had been. I've been praying constantly since I came back. Praying for February 7th, praying that people will listen. Praying that my story will help prepare hearts for what's coming. Every day I wake up and thank God that He didn't give up on me, that He had a purpose for me even when I had given up on myself. If you're reading this or hearing this, please listen carefully. Please don't brush this off as the crazy story of a drug addict. I know how it sounds. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm telling you the truth. February 7th through 21st, 2026 will be the most important 2 weeks in modern history. What happens during those 14 days will determine the course of your eternal destiny. This isn't a game. This isn't a story. This is real. And it's coming in less than a week. If you're struggling with addiction like I was, there is hope. Jesus can break those chains in one moment. He did it for me, and He'll do it for you. Don't wait until February 7th. Don't wait until you see the angels. Cry out to Him right now. Get on your knees wherever you are and ask Him to set you free. He's listening. He hears you. He loves you. If you've been running from God, stop running. The same Jesus who showed mercy to a worthless drug addict wants to show mercy to you. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how far you've fallen. He can reach you right where you are. But you have to stop running and turn to Him. If you're a believer who's been lukewarm, get on fire. These 2 weeks that are coming will separate the real from the fake. Don't be caught pretending. Don't be caught playing church games. Get serious about your relationship with God. Pray like you've never prayed before. Fast. Seek His face. Get your heart right. If you've never given your life to Christ, do it now. Don't wait another second. Tell Him you're sorry for your sins. Ask Him to save you. Believe that He died and rose again for you. It's that simple. Don't wait until the angels appear. Don't wait until February 7th. Do it right now while you still can. To parents, talk to your children about what's coming. Pray with them every day. Prepare their hearts. These 2 weeks will be intense, and young people need to know what's happening so they won't be afraid. They need to know this is from God, not something to fear. To pastors and church leaders, get your congregations ready. Stop preaching about building programs and fundraising campaigns. Preach repentance. Preach holiness. Preach the fear of God. This isn't going to look like anything you've planned or predicted. Be ready to embrace what God is doing, even if it doesn't fit your theology perfectly. Don't be like the Pharisees who rejected Jesus because He didn't match their expectations. To everyone, stock up on food and water, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Stores might be closed during these 2 weeks. Have enough supplies to help your neighbors who didn't prepare. Be ready to share what you have. Most importantly, get your heart right with God. Confess your sins. Make things right with people you've hurt. Forgive those who have hurt you. Get rid of anything in your life that dishonors God. Stop living for yourself and start living for Him. The angels are coming. The separation is happening. The time to choose is now. I'm Rebatula Chen. I was a drug addict for 16 years. I died on January 11th, 2026, and Jesus sent me back with this warning. I'm sharing it not to scare you, but to prepare you. I'm sharing it because I don't want anyone to face what's coming without being ready. What you do with this information is between you and God. But please, don't ignore it. Don't wait. Don't assume you have more time. Don't think this doesn't apply to you. The clock is ticking. February 7th is almost here. Get ready.